Hi, welcome to Delaney's Well. I am Kat Delaney. Today we are going to do something a little different. I've actually been inspired by some of the astrological transits. And as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I've been inspired to do a series on the Saturn transit in Pisces, and aims of that being able to help us work with some of our tendencies towards some bad habits, also known as addictions. Pisces as a sign can be a space in our chart or a sign that is often associated with addicted tendencies. And having Saturn move into that particular sign is like bringing a sense of responsibility and self-control into that area. So that especially inspired me to make this series. And additionally, Mars just moved into Virgo, and Virgo is a sign that's associated with our daily habits and our daily routines and how we take care of ourselves by way of what we eat and exercise and sleep and all the good stuff that gives us a good quality, healthy life. And so having Mars move into this particular sign where it will be for the next few weeks, it will be adding this like added energy or this initiatory energy into the sign of Virgo. So it's a good time to look at our daily habits and maybe make some adjustments, change up how we are taking care of ourselves. So as part of that series, I'm going to be going through some different addictions that people might have taken on as part of their routine. And maybe it might not even be an addiction, but you might see how it can negatively affect your health. And so each of these videos, I'm going to be focusing on one. Today, I'm going to be focusing on alcohol. And that is partially because of my own journey with alcohol, and also especially because of the surge of how many deaths are related to alcohol that have come about since 2019. So in 2019, there was an average of around 79,000 deaths per year that were related to alcohol. In 2020, that jumped up to 98,000. So it had a 25% increase. And in 2021, that jumped up to 108,000 deaths that are associated with alcohol. Now, that's not just, of course, drunk driving, but that is also related to chronic illness that is created in the body due to excessive drinking of alcohol. And I was inspired to create this video because, as you know, many of you may know, I'm interested in astrology and have been studying astrology for a good part of my life. I'm also certified in clinical herbalism, aromatherapy, and nutrition. So this transit has kind of inspired me to combine all of these things together. And I remember when everything first got kind of shut down in the beginning of 2020, I myself had gone into the liquor store, and the owner, who was there at that time, boasted of a 30% increase of sales. So that seed that was put in my pocket, I basically carried with me for the last couple of years, and it's grown into this idea of sharing this information with you all. So we're going to look at some of the ways that alcohol affects our health, and also some of the things that we can do herbally that can help us to make our system replete from possibly having a habit of consuming alcohol. Now, if you're working with this yourself, it does help to have the willingness to observe yourself, right? Take a couple steps back and observe what makes you want to drink. And if that's an emotional situation, maybe you need to spend some more time with friends or get some different activities. The problem is, of course, when we are indulging in this substance, it can be very isolating. And one of my I should say my biggest phases of isolating with alcohol myself was when I was dealing with the passing of my mother. And that was in the December of 2008. And I was just around the age of 30 years old. I just turned 30 years old. And I didn't have a lot of friends or anyone in my life that had lost a parent. And so I went to alcohol, and I basically, survived on alcohol and honey breve lattes, which are basically lattes made with half and half and some honey and espresso, and drinking and cannabis, and that's what I was basically giving my body by way of sustenance for many, many months. And one morning, or one day rather, I realized that basically everything that I was giving to my body was a depressant on top of me mourning the loss of my mom, and that I needed to start eating. And I've mentioned this story in other videos before, that I hadn't gone grocery shopping for months, and I went through all of my cabinets, and I ended up finding some oats and some dried fruit and some nuts, and in my refrigerator I had some maple syrup, and I happened to have some coconut oil. And so I made myself some really good oatmeal, and when I took my first bite, my body thanked me for it. And I realized then how important nutrition was to me feeling better. And that ultimately was what led me to want to become a nutritionist and to study how the body is assisted by way of food. And food is our first medicine. And when we're not eating it, right, the body tends to go to its resource, which is us, because it needs fat and it needs energy and it needs protein to run. Now, it's really hard, when you are drinking alcohol, to stop craving alcohol, especially if your body is not getting enough nutrients, and especially if you have poor nutrition. And the crux of that situation is that often when people have a habit of drinking a lot, they tend to sacrifice eating food. And so that creates an even bigger problem, because we have even less nutrition for our body and this machine to run. So a couple of the different nutrients that get really depleted by way of alcohol consumption are the B vitamins. So it is important, if you are looking at wanting to drink less, or even eventually stop drinking, that you start supplementing your body and your daily routine with these nutrients, because when you're nutritionally replete, it is much easier, or less difficult, I should say, to wean yourself off alcohol, because your body is satisfied nutritionally. So taking a B complex vitamin or incorporating nutritional yeast in your meals can add B vitamins into your diet. But I'm going to go through a list of different supplements that are especially helpful, because you have to consider that alcohol, it affects our body in a lot of negative ways. So when we look at the things that actually are building the numbers of why there was 108,000 alcohol related deaths just in the United States in 2021, there was over 10,000 people that died from drunk driving, and there was over 47,000 people that died from deaths attributed to long-term health failure from drinking alcohol. Now, there was 18,000 people, more than 18,000 people that died from alcoholic liver disease, 3,500 people who passed away from hypertension, which was brought about by excessive alcohol consumption, over 4,000 people who died from alcohol dependence. And if you are a person who has severe alcohol dependence or experiencing alcohol dependence syndrome, it's important that you don't just try to quit cold turkey, and that you get some kind of medical assistance in weaning yourself off alcohol, because it can be quite deadly to just try to quit if your body actually has dependence on alcohol itself. Now, 2,500 people died from alcohol abuse, 703 people from alcoholic psychosis, 330 people from alcohol-induced pancreatitis, 145 people from degeneration of the nervous system from alcohol consumption. And then there are also additional deaths that are partially attributable to alcohol consumption, which include deaths from cancer. There's over 5,000 of those in that year. Heart disease and stroke, which is also attributable to alcohol consumption. And there's 8,700 people who died from heart disease and stroke. Then there's also health conditions related to the liver, gallbladder, and pancreatitis, which there was over 10,000 deaths in 2021. Chronic pneumonia in individuals that are from 20 to 64 years old, 133 people died. Chronic seizures, including epilepsy or seizure disorder, that is also associated with alcohol consumption. And there's 134 people who died in 2021 from that. Now, alcohol poisoning, there's 2,200 people annually who die from alcohol poisoning, and 76% of those people are men. And 30% of those deaths can be attributable to alcohol dependence syndrome. So alcohol is kind of like the elephant in the room, right? Like we go to it socially, it's socially accepted. I know where I live, a lot of people drink, and it's something that people think that they have a decent amount of control over, or they have reasons to do it. But the thing that we need to consider is how much it actually negatively affects our health. And that's why I think it's a good time right now to really look at our habits and what we're doing to our bodies, because, you know, no one wants their liver to shut down, for instance, right? Or to have problems with their pancreas or their kidneys, or to have to be dependent on alcohol, which ultimately affects your life and your relationships and, you know, your ability to go to work and a number of other things in your life, let alone the possibility of death that's also involved. Now, it's important, you know, to look at what you're taking into your body when you're looking at quitting this substance, because, you know, when you are weaning yourself off of drinking or even trying to drink less, the body goes through some withdrawals, and you really don't want your blood sugar to drop too much. So you have to make sure that you're eating good food and supplementing the body so that you don't feel like you have to go back to the alcohol, because it is, you know, it has a lot of sugar in it. It does pump up the sugar in your bloodstream. So nutritionally, you know, and I'm going to just refer to this book, which is the Encyclopedia of Natural Healing, because they have things listed out really well and easily, and it's just easier for me to go through it this way. But during the withdrawal period, which lasts for a few days to a week, the appetite is often reduced. Dietary support for the body's transition should concentrate on fluids and lots of fruits and vegetables, preferably eaten raw, to provide the required nutrients and enzymes for rebuilding immunity. Raw fruits and vegetables are also alkaline and help reduce cravings. Water, diluted fruit and vegetable juice, and warm broths, as well as soups, aid in the initial elimination of toxins from the system. And it's important to include high protein vegetables such as lentils, peas, beans, carrots, potatoes, and eggs to strengthen the weakened body. Eat foods rich in magnesium, such as wheat germ or figs, and cold pressed vegetable oils such as flaxseed oil to reduce withdrawal symptoms. Flaxseed oil will also inhibit the body's production of inflammatory prostaglandins. Now, flaxseed oil is something that you want to get fresh. You don't want to let it sit around for too long, so it is important to get it from the refrigerated section of your health food store. You can also grind flax seeds and put them in your meals or on your salad, and you can get a little boost from them that way. Now, It's important that you eat regular meals every few hours based on complex carbohydrates such as grains, pasta, potatoes, squashes, legumes, and soy products. Nutritional yeast will also provide B vitamins, and important minerals. Now, as far as the vitamins and minerals go, it's important to consider that the alcohol consumption causes numerous problems as a result of both nutrient deficiencies and the toxic effect it has on the liver, nerves, and other parts of the body. As B vitamins are often depleted, supplementation is particularly important and helps reduce cravings. Special attention should be paid to vitamins B1, B6, folic acid, and B12. B12 is best absorbed sublingually, which is under the tongue, or by injecting, and the mineral magnesium is also often lacking. There's actually at least 60% of the population which is deficient in magnesium. So it is helpful to take magnesium as a supplement as well, unless you eat a lot of green leafy vegetables. Magnesium helps to lessen withdrawal symptoms, and other common deficiencies which are the result of alcohol consumption include vitamins A, C, E, selenium, and zinc. And keep in mind, those are all immune system building vitamins. So a lot of times our whole system is depressed if we have the habit of just drinking alcohol regularly. So, I'm not bringing this information out as to make anyone feel shamed or to make anyone feel bad, but to bring your attention to it, mostly because I know where I grew up, which was a small, or shouldn't say small, but it was a college town. Drinking was just something that everybody did. And I think, after realizing that liquor sales at have gone up over 30% in the last couple of years, and that alcohol related deaths have also been consistently on the rise and really did boost up even more in 2020 after everyone went home and kind of went into this isolated place. It's important for us to look at it and consider our daily habits. And if we can see, like as I was saying in the beginning of the video, through observation, that there are certain aspects of our life or relationships that make us called to go to that thing, then maybe it asks us to try different things in our life. And for myself, I had spoken about the example of my mom passing away and that I was drinking a lot during that time. One thing that I did, I would drink a lot of wine. So I would pour myself a glass of wine, and I decided to use the wine glass as a reminder that I needed to work on something else. So basically, every time I went to look at the wine glass, I'd be like, oh, I have to do dishes, or I need to fold my laundry and put it away, or I need to, clean XYZ, or whatever it was that I had on my to-do list, because I was in a state of depression and mourning the loss of my mom. So I wasn't getting a lot accomplished at the time. And I used the wine glass as this kind of cue, right? And what I observed over, me doing this strategy for a week or so is that I would end up waking up in the morning with a glass of wine that would be, halfway full, because I would just not drink it. And so that ended up being a really good strategy for me. And, if anyone below feels comfortable sharing their strategies, if you have a strategy of reducing the amount of alcohol that you drink, I encourage you to share them below. Or even if you want to send it to me via email, if you want to keep your privacy, of course, I respect that and honor that. And you can send me an email sharing your strategy, and I can post it on the comment section below. But of course, I think it's important that people realize that they're not going through any of this alone, even if they feel that they are. There are other people that have gone through things similar and want to lend some kind of support by what they've discovered in their process. You know, as far as herbal support, I like to lean to Brigitte Mar's book, Addiction Free Naturally. This is a great book, and I will tag it below in case people want to go buy their own copy. But this has inspired a lot of the work that I'm putting together for these videos. And, you know, she talks about the process of how alcohol became so popular in our country, and also reminds us that there are certain populations of people that really should be avoiding drinking, particularly people who are taking prescription drugs, because those all get processed by the liver, and the liver has a lot of jobs, over 300 jobs. It's a workhorse. And so when it's already having to process prescription drugs, of course, adding alcohol onto it can be really bad for the liver. Other people who should not be drinking: women who are pregnant, of course, or are soon planning to be, people who have diabetes, people who have heart disease, hypertension, arthritis, gout, neuralgia, psoriasis, or rosacea, anyone who has a yeast overgrowth, stomach disorders, liver ailments, chronic fatigue, and also anyone with any viral diseases should avoid alcohol altogether. She mentions some different herbs that can be helpful for, you know, taking into the system. And another teacher of mine actually shared that dandelion root is a good remedy to start taking daily that will help you reduce your cravings for alcohol. And what she would do is she would make a decoction of dandelion root, which of course there's dandelions all over the place. So if you want to go harvest them yourself and dig them up and clean them and dry them and use them for dandelion root tea, you get the prize. You get a couple gold stars for that. But you can also buy dandelion root pretty readily at any apothecary or herb store or natural food store. A lot of them, the natural grocery stores will sell dandelion root in a package with all of their bulk teas. And so I would just buy it that way. Dandelion root is a very hard, has very hard plant matter. So it's better to decoct it rather than to just steep it like you would normal tea. So a decoction is basically a water extraction process. It's done with plant matter that is more dense, like roots and hard berries and seeds and bark. And so you basically just have the plant matter, in this case, it would be dandelion root, simmering in water for at least a half hour to a couple of hours even, so you can extract all of the good stuff out of that dandelion root. You can also grind it up a little bit to make it easier to extract, but basically you want a long extraction process on that low simmering heat, and then you'll strain it. And then if you have a craving to drink alcohol, you would drink the dandelion root tea instead. And then, of course, if you still have the craving, you can still drink a little bit of the alcohol, but by drinking the dandelion root tea, it will basically get your body to have less of a craving. So you'll see yourself drink less and less of it because you will have drinking the dandelion root tea. So she described it as a really useful process to help her reduce her cravings for alcohol and to also help her stop drinking alcohol. And of course, again, I need to mention, in case you didn't see me say this earlier, that if you are in a situation where you have alcohol dependence syndrome, it is important that you seek medical support and help to help wean yourself off alcohol rather than just quitting cold turkey. But it is important that we make ourselves nutritionally replete, because we will have less cravings if we do so. So dandelion root tea can be a very helpful ally. Milk thistle is also really wonderful for helping repair the liver, because it is associated detoxification of the liver. So you can get milk thistle seeds and just grind them up and put them on your salads or in your smoothies, or alternatively you can get the milk thistle capsules and take those daily. Now you can also take St. John's wort because it actually helps to heal damaged nerves and lift the spirits and calms irritability. But that is also another herb that there is caution against using if you take any kind of antidepressants, or if you take any kind of pharmaceuticals that have a timing to them, because milk thistle and St. John's wort actually both make the liver process things faster. So if you are on any kind of prescription drugs, you need to consult your doctor or your health care practitioner prior to taking any of these herbs, because they can affect your body's ability to metabolize and detoxify the pharmaceutical medications that you are taking. So aside from those, I do want to mention the different vitamins and the amounts that would be helpful to be taking to help reduce the cravings of alcohol and also help the body repair itself. A B complex vitamin, 50 milligrams 3 times a day. A B12, which you take sublingually, 1,000 micrograms once a day. B6, 100 milligrams once a day. Then magnesium, 500 milligrams once a day. Vitamin C with bioflavonoids. You can take from 3,000 to 10,000 milligrams, but you want to take it in small doses. You can take vitamin C to capacity and it'll basically, give you the runs. So you can just take a smaller dose. You don't have to take a lot of vitamin C. Zinc is a really good ally as well for our immune system and immune functioning, 50 to 80 milligrams, and make sure it has 3 to 4 milligrams of copper in it. Then there's also chromium, which will help reduce your sugar cravings. Chromium is 200 micrograms 2 times a day. It's also really helpful for people who have diabetes as well, or insulin resistance. Vitamin A is also a good ally, 25,000 IU. You want to avoid that if you are a pregnant woman. Vitamin E with mixed tocopherols, 400 IU, 1 to 2 times daily. Selenium, which is also an ally for the immune system, 200 micrograms daily. Evening primrose can also be really helpful. 2 500 milligram capsules, 2 to 3 times daily, with or without food. And then there's L-cysteine, 500 milligrams 3 times daily, and L-glutamine, which is 500 milligrams 3 times daily. Now, the L-glutamine is going to actually help repair the gut. So consider that alcohol is damaging to the gut lining, and that is where we absorb all of our food. So it makes sense that alcohol on its own is going to be, in a lot of ways, an anti-nutrient. So things that we need to consider is, how much alcohol is affecting your life and your relationships. And if it is something that you are wanting to work with, you might want to seek out people who are also aware of that concern, rather than be around people who kind of encourage you to drink all the time. And of course, alternatively, finding something that you can drink that's not alcoholic so that you can still be in those situations and still have a beverage that you enjoy. So making sure that you have those beverages with you if you are going to a friend's gathering, or that you've asked the place that you're a patron at with your friends if they can start carrying some alternatives for you as well, because it is a very big loss to all of us that we became so isolated over the last couple of years. And of course that can ripple into so many different areas of our life, and we've seen that affect people's emotional well-being, and ultimately that might make people isolate more and drink even more. And So it's really up to you to be able to, take an honest look at your life and how much time and energy you put into alcohol consumption, or even other things, that you feel like might have more control over you and your daily activities than you would like. And I feel it's really up to us to do that and to make the effort to do so. Of course, if you want any support personally from me in looking at your diet and ways that you can supplement your diet or change the foods that you're eating, you can reach out to me at rootsofalchemy@gmail.com. If you are interested in making a donation to help the creation of these videos, of course, that's much appreciated, and you can do so through the donations link on my website, rootsofalchemy.com. I hope ultimately that this information was useful and that it provided a different perspective. I know for myself, a few of my friends and a few of my family members are really looking at the question of alcohol consumption in their lives and how much that affects our lives and our relationships. And so I just wanted to share the information with people in hopes that it would be inspiring and also lend you some support if it's something that you're looking at. And of course, also, some information to make us look at it more soberly, quite literally. And in the future, I'm going to be offering different videos that look at other addictions and other behaviors that we might want to work with taking out of our lives, such as sugar addiction, smoking cigarettes, cannabis, smoking cannabis, and what other ones was I going to be looking at? I think primarily those. Oh, and caffeine, because I worked in coffee houses for most of my life, and coffee is definitely one that I'm personally looking at. I have worked with cigarette addiction myself, and I have also worked with cannabis, and I've also worked with sugar. So I'm going to be bringing those to the table. I'll probably be offering these videos one every 2 weeks or so, maybe one every week, depending on how busy my days are. And if you feel like you would want any more information in respect to this, or if there's anything particular that you found was useful, I'd appreciate your comments below. And if there's anything in regard to those different subjects that I mentioned that you would like me to do next, for instance, if you're like, I really am working with the cigarette thing, or you're really working with coffee and caffeine, or you're really working with cannabis, write that below and I'll consider that for my next video. I send you a good wish and I send you support. And I think that if we are having our attention go to something in our life that's causing us to question it, it's important for us to make a dedicated effort to work with it. And that's what I'm here to hopefully inspire you to do. I will see you next time. Take care. Bye for now.